Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Weeks, and today we have a special guest host. It's Jordan Pridgen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Pridgen. I'm one of the writers and producers on the channel. I do ads and special projects and other things that we do. If you need scripting, I probably help.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you here because this is a super fun episode.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
That we don't get to do for every set.
No.
So this is going to be our first. Hopefully, we'll get to do more. The most flavorful commander of Lord of the Rings. So we've already done an episode about the most powerful commanders in the set, but we know that's not the only way to judge a commander. So today we're talking about the commanders that really tell their story the best, the ones that really connect with the characters that we know and love from the Lord of the Rings.
Which this has just been like an amazing set for.
Yeah.
Overall.
That's the thing is there's like so many cards in this set are so flavorful and are so sharp and they're full of so many like good jokes.
Yeah.
That it feels like a shame to narrow it down to just a few, but these are the ones that we really wanted to talk about that we felt like really, really hit the mark. And we're going to talk about the commander decks that you can build around them. So hopefully you'll get a cool, flavorful commander deck out of this. But first, if you hear any cards that you want to pick up from this episode, go to cardkingdom.com/command. It's a great way to shop for Magic singles and sealed product while supporting the show that you hopefully love. You're here. That means a lot. Plus, Card Kingdom is super professional, and the way that they package their cards is really professional. What I love about Card Kingdom is they have this huge inventory where you can get all of your cards in one place. I've never gotten a Card Kingdom package where my cards are damaged, and even if they do, if something goes disastrously wrong, they've got great customer service to handle any problems. So again, support the show and feed your magic habit with cardkingdom.com/command. And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them, to decorate them, to organize them. Go to ultrapro.com/command for some of the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. They have an especially awesome line for Lord of the Rings because it is such an art-heavy set.
Yeah, and they have all the official art for everything.
Yeah,
so.
They have the officially licensed stuff. So you can get all of the Magic art that you're seeing on the Lord of the Rings cards, and you can get them on your playmat. I love that it's so many like iconic characters that are just you can slam down across from your opponents. I think playing Sauron across from your opponents is like, oh, I'm the baddie.
Yeah, all the Sauron arts turned out really cool.
Yeah,
too,
he's got this like big helmet.
Yeah,
it's super sick, and all of it is available on playmats and sleeves, deck boxes, binders. You can find all of that at ultrapro.com/command. The final way to support us is directly at patreon.com/commandzone. You can join and support the show absolutely directly. And that means that your money is going toward making this show better, towards all of our editors and directors and writers, and make sure that we can keep this show going as cool as it possibly can for you guys. Plus, there are some cool perks for our patrons. You get to see extra turns and game nights a day early. You get access to exclusive content like Turn Talks, which is a conversation that we have after every extra turns just to talk about how it went.
Really kind of my favorite part of extra turns.
I love Turn Talks because it's one of those moments where like everybody's sort of debriefing after the game. You're like, man, I really thought I had you with the this, and if I had one more turn, I would have drawn the that.
Still on the adrenaline rush after a game is over, and you're like, ah!
Yeah, it's so much fun, and you do get to find out like what a deck could be if it doesn't get to perform in that game, which is a ton of fun. And you can only get access to that by being a Patreon. Plus, we shout out one lucky patron every episode, and this episode is dedicated to Paul Kariakos. Paul Kariakos.
Paul Kariakos. Yes.
You rock,
I said it right
Paul.
First time simultaneously with Rachel.
We nailed it. We're going to edit it in, and it's going to be
Perfect.
Like a choir.
Flawless.
All right, let's get into it today. We got a lot of commanders to talk about. So today we're talking about like the commanders and the cards that go with it, but we're also talking about the story of Lord of the Rings. Like I grew up watching the movies. I've watched them like tens of times every single year since they came out, basically. But I have only I've listened to the first book on tape. I'm not super familiar with the actual source material that these came from. So we brought on Jordan, who does know the book.
Hooray! I will admit, and this is like a little bit of a knock to my nerddom, but I did see the first movie before I ever read the Lord of the Rings books. But I've read them multiple times since then. I of course, love the movies. Yeah. Everybody loves the movies.
They're masterpieces. Amazing. It's ridiculous.
But then, also been lots of lore videos and wiki deep dives and all that stuff. I just love lore and history and background. And Lord of the Rings in Middle-earth is just like one of the best ones out there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited that we get to dig into it today. It's funny that you say that you read the book after the first one. And I remember when the first book came out, my brother was like 9 years old and I was like 11. And my parents were very strict about what movies we could go see. And they were like, okay, Nate, you can go see the Lord of the Rings movie, but only if you read the book first.
Oh.
So my 9-year-old brother just looked at the pages of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way he read it and comprehended that book. But he sat down and turned.
Like, who's your favorite character? I like the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he's that's my favorite guy for sure.
That Lord guy with all the rings.
All right, we are going to talk about our favorite commanders flavor-wise, but let's get into it with the one that made me absolutely jump for joy when I saw it.
This is honestly, I think this is like the funniest joke in the whole set.
Well, let's read it. It's Bilbo Birthday Celebrant.
Hooray!
It's white, black, green. I love that Bilbo's black.
Yeah, well, he's a little ambitious. He was a burglar back in his day.
He was.
So.
He's also like... he's had the ring a long time at this point.
Exactly.
He's a little corrupted.
They describe him as being a little too well preserved.
Yeah.
And he describes it as feeling a little stretched out.
See?
A little bit of that darkness.
He has been affected here. So this is white, black, green for a 2/3 halfling rogue. If you would gain life, you gain that much life plus 1 instead. Which makes sense. And then 2 white, black, green, tap, exile Bilbo Birthday Celebrant, search your library for any number of creature cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And here's the kicker, activate only if you have 11 or more life.
Which is 111 for those of you who are not hobbits. But they constantly refer to it as his 11st birthday in the book. Which, come on, that's amazing.
It's such a great joke that that Tolkien was at home being like
It's so the very first line in the book, like when you open it up and you start reading Lord of the Rings, is when Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag Inn announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 11st birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. So this is, if you've only started to read Lord of the Rings, you still know about the 11st
Bilbo's birthday. Yeah. I looked it up because I wanted to see more and more info about his birthday party specifically, and the first thing that came up was Bilbo's birthday is September 22nd, which is the same day as Frodo's birthday.
Yeah, they have the same birthday. That's like, I don't know if that's why he adopted him in the book. Yeah. It's like, we've got the same birthday. You should come live with me and we can celebrate at the same time.
It's so funny that he throws this huge birthday party and he doesn't address that it's Frodo's birthday. At any point.
It's a twofer, Frodo can have the big party when he's 11.
That's true. That's true. So I love the 11 joke here, and I love that he exiles and he brings everybody to the same place.
Yep.
Because that's a big thing about this birthday party is he invites everybody, including the people he doesn't particularly care about because it's more about how big it is.
Yep.
And that he exiles himself. Which
sure.
Is what happens?
He
leaves. He Irish goodbyes his 11st birthday. But I really like this. If you would gain 1 life, you gain that much life plus 1, because that's what you were saying, is that doesn't really age. His life is really controlled by the ring and sustained by it.
Yeah, well, and I also think in like a practical sense, that's going to be the part of the card if you're like building the deck that you're really like playing with for a lot. Because realistically, how often are you going to get to 111 life and put everything on the board?
Yeah, you have to be at 111 life. You have to control your commander at this point, and it has to be able to activate.
Yeah.
There's a lot that has to go right here for you to actually be able to get everybody to come to the birthday party. But isn't that just what planning a party is all about?
I'm not saying it's not a blast. And I think if I was playing with someone and they managed to pull it off and they bring it out and it's all just like, and it doesn't win the game with all, I'd be like, yeah, it's okay, you win.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, you got it. Birthday party.
It's so fun. All right, so we definitely are building around this first line here, this gain life. So let's talk about it. We're going to need to gain a lot of life, and Bilbo specifies that gaining life in multiple increments is going to be how he's most effective.
Yeah. So, like, because if you can gain 1 life every time this thing happens, you're basically doubling.
Right. Yeah. As opposed to like if you like double your life total or you gain 8, then you only gain 9 with Bilbo on board.
Not that you like wouldn't want to run stuff like that.
You probably do, but I think the deck is certainly full of creatures that will trigger multiple times. So your Essence Warden is going to be a mainstay. I think you probably run all of the Soul Sisters. They all say whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life.
Yeah. And then if you do pull off the big final thing, you'll gain a bunch of extra life too. Because all your creatures will enter the battlefield.
Will be in play. And all of the Soul Sisters will enter at the same time. And I can't even imagine resolving this final ability.
That sounds like do we all just agree I have a lot of life?
Yeah, we sure do. This next one is cute in this deck. It's Teething Wormlet. It's a single green for a worm. Teething Wormlet has Death Touch as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. If it's the first time this ability has resolved this turn, put a counter on the little wormlet. So I think this deck is still going to be a food deck if you're building around all of the hobbits. Like if you want to build a flavorful hobbit deck, this little guy is almost as good as one of the Soul Sisters.
Yeah, and I mean, there are just so many ways to make artifacts enter the battlefield.
Oh my gosh.
These days, like, they're just everywhere. So the next card you had on the list was Trostani, Selesnya's Voice, which is 2 green and 2 white for a legendary creature dryad. It's a 2/5. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. That could get out of hand very fast.
Yeah.
It's got that Soul Sisters thing where it's got a lot of instances, but it could kick up the speed a bit.
This one's really powerful in this deck because Trostani's annoying, but it's not annoying enough that people tend to remove it.
Yeah.
We were like, gosh, they've gained like 20 life this turn. And it is still multiple instances of life gain, so Bilbo is still helping out. So like if you cast Trostani and then cast Bilbo, you gain 4 right off of the bat there. One of my favorite life gain cards in the game is Sangromancer. 2 black for a 3/3 vampire shaman. It has flying. It says whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may gain 3 life. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life.
Yeah, you're just getting a lot of incidental life gain with stuff like that.
This one, and you don't have to be a wheels deck. You don't have to be killing your opponent's stuff. Things just die. People just discard. That's part of the game. And I think Sangromancer is another one of those threats that you're just like, gosh, that thing is annoying, but it's hard to spend a removal spell on it.
Speaking of kind of incidental life gain on stuff, this next one you had here, Fangren Marauder, which is 5 and a green for a creature beast 5/5. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 5 life. I've been loving effects like this recently.
Incredible. It's very important to note. It's a artifact goes to a graveyard.
So if you have
5
opponents who are just doing a ton of treasures and cracking them for everything, you're getting 5 every time that happens. That is so cool.
This card is a common, but like if an opponent cracks 3 treasures, you gain 15 life.
That's insane.
That's a ton of life and not that many treasures.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Fangren Marauder is quite good and will get you on the way to 11T1 life. But 11T1 is a lot of life. So we're going to need some big ways to gain a lot of life in big swings, preferably at instant speed, I think. So this first one is going to be the biggest way. It's really important that it's an instant. It's Beacon of Immortality. 5 and a white for an instant, double target player's life total, shuffle Beacon of Immortality into its owner's library.
That, I mean, in a deck that's already a dedicated life gain deck, that's going to get you there. Because people, if you get to the point where you almost have 11d1 life and you have Bilbo out, the whole table is going to be like, well, we've got to get rid of Bilbo.
Right.
But if you're just at the point where you have like
55.
56 life, then no one's paying attention. They think you've got miles and miles to go.
Yep.
But you don't.
Yeah, if you have Bilbo in play, pass the turn with 6 mana, which is a bit of a red flag, but
sure.
pass the turn with 6 mana, end step, double your life total, untap, activate Bilbo.
That sounds great.
That sounds like a nice birthday party.
Sounds like party time.
Yeah, so there's a lot of instant speed effects that I think are going to be best in this deck. Heliod's Intervention is such a house of a card.
Oh, yeah. Just the twice X life is so... And, you know, I feel like you don't normally run Heliod's Intervention for the life gain side of it, but... the fact that it is so useful and you can use it to just knock out a bunch of artifacts and enchantments that are becoming a problem or just gain a ton of life, really good in this deck.
Instant speed goes a long way here. I really liked this card, War Report. It's 3 and a white for an instant. You gain life equal to the number of creatures on the battlefield plus the number of artifacts on the battlefield. If you're doing that food thing, you're going to have plenty of foods going around and you're easily going to gain like 15 life from the number of creatures on the board, and that's reasonable.
Well, and if you're kind of doing the Soul Sisters thing at the same time, you're probably going to have a pretty creature-heavy deck.
Yeah.
So this is really going to be paying you off for that.
The hobbits are super tokeny, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this card is gonna put in a lot of work, as will this next one, which I have seen put in a ton of work. Fracturing Gust. Have you seen this card?
I mean, I remember this from like the Lorwyn Shadowmoor stuff, but I've not seen it in play recently.
It is a little expensive. It's 2 and then 3 hybrids Selesnya. So 5 to get all together. So 2 green, white for an instant. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. You gain 2 life for each permanent destroyed this way.
That's pretty spicy.
Yeah. So you're going to hit your foods, but you're still going to gain a ton of life. +1 with Bilbo.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll hit everyone else's things.
Right.
Like, worst case scenario, if they have a bunch of treasures, they can sacrifice them all and deny you that stuff. But still, I had to get rid of all their treasures.
Yeah, I think that card is plenty good.
Mm-hmm. And then you have a couple of life gain doublers here, which are like pretty great. Like Rock's Faith Minder, which is 3 and a white with for a Rhino Monk, 1/5 with lifelink, and it says if you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. And there's a couple other things that like Alhammert's Archive also
great option here, yeah.
And the one thing I do think is cool about these life gain doublers is you can order it in the way that like works best for you.
Right.
So like you can gain the one extra life off of Bilbo first and then let the doubling, because it's just replacement effects. So you just kind of replace and replace and replace.
Yeah. So if you gain 1 life off of a Soul Sister, you would gain 2 with Bilbo, and that doubled is 4 for every creature that enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
And that's only like a Rocks, a Soul Sister, and a Bilbo on board.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to mention in a deck like this, because I feel like life gain decks have this one weakness where it's you can gain infinite life, but you can still get taken down by commander damage or infect or infinite combo
any win the game
stuff.
Thing or
win the game stuff.
Too.
But a lot of those are tricky for people to find. So when I'm gaining a lot of life, I really like to run Righteous Aura, which is an enchantment for 1 and a white. It says white, pay 2 life, : the next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. So what this does is it translates like big amounts of damage into just losing 2 life. And that gets around infect, that gets around commander damage, that gets around like anybody attacking you with a bunch of 6/6s, which is going to happen. You're gaining a lot of life. So you can leave some of that mana up just to protect yourself and keep that life total high.
Yeah, that's very cool.
All right. We're having a party. Who's invited?
I mean, obviously you gotta invite the hobbits, right?
I feel like you can't build this deck without just all the legal hobbits.
Yeah, a little bit of flavor. Look, if you just want to build a life gain deck, there are options.
Yeah.
There's lots of things out there, and you can build it that way.
Yeah.
But come on. You gotta have a Hobbit party.
So I feel like the first thing that I would add to this list is just all the hobbits, like Samwise Gamgee, who whenever another non-token enters, you make a food. Sam Loyal Attendant. There's going to be a couple Sams in attendance.
A little weird that more than one Sam comes up to the party, but fine.
Like, whoa, Sam, what happened? He makes foods cheaper to sack and also produces foods.
And of course, this next one has to be there.
Yeah, it's his birthday.
It's also his birthday, which is Frodo, adventurous hobbit for white and black. And, he just does... Whenever Frodo, adventurous hobbit attacks, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, the ring tempts you. Then, if Frodo is your ring bearer and the ring has tempted you 2 or more times this game, draw a card. And in this deck, you're almost definitely going to have gained 3 life every turn.
Yeah,
so.
If you're not gaining 3 life every turn, I don't know what you're doing. I'm definitely putting the gaffer in this deck at the beginning of each end step. If you gain 3 or more life this turn, draw a card.
That's Samwise's dad.
It's Samwise.
Sam's dad.
My old gaffer.
His name is Ham.
His name is Ham?
He's Ham Gamgee. I'm 100% not making that up.
This is my dad, Ham.
This is Ham.
And I'm Sam.
Ham and Sam.
Sweet. I love it. I think you got to put Farmer Cotton in this deck.
Absolutely.
Farmer Cotton is great. This card is so good. It's X, a green and a white for a halfling peasant. He's a 1/1, and when he enters the battlefield, create X 1/1 white halfling creature tokens and X food tokens.
Yeah, I mean, this is great for flavor, and also, all those food tokens and stuff are just going to make it easier to gain life.
Yeah, and all those halflings will trigger your soul sisters.
It really is fun how much the halfling mechanics work with Bilbo in this.
I agree, and I like the fact that you can put all these in and you're not really sacrificing synergy is so cool. There's a ton of halflings you can put in this deck. They're easy to find. Peregrine Took, Rosie Cotton, Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff, I think is great.
Yeah.
We talk about it in the 99 episode. I think that card is very good. One you may not have seen is Eleanor Gardner. This one's only in the Jumpstart pack, so I do want to read it. It's 3 and a green for a halfling scout. When Eleanor enters the battlefield, create a food, and then at the beginning of your end step, if you sacrificed a food this turn, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that card into the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle.
Seems really good.
Really, really good. If you're building in the food direction, you're getting lands every turn. It makes it easier to crack more foods, and you're saving up all of that mana to have that one big Bilbo turn. We've got to mention Prize Pig because it's the funniest Magic card I've seen in a long time.
So Prize Pig is 1 and a green for a creature boar. When you gain life, put that many ribbon counters on Prize Pig. Then,
he's a good boy.
Yeah, he's winning prizes. Then, if there are 3 or more ribbon counters on Prize Pig, remove those ribbon counters and untap it. So
this card's cracked.
And then and it has the ability to tap and add 1 mana of any color.
Yeah.
Very important to how the card works there.
So he essentially this Prize Pig with Sam Loyal Attendant means you can crack every food you have, right? Activated abilities of foods you control cost 1 less to activate. He taps for the other one. And then he gets the ribbon counters and untaps. So the
Prize Pig just eats all the food.
He just eats all the food. He and Sam are ravaging the buffet.
I love it. So funny.
There is a soul sister that's a halfling. And it's Prosperous Innkeeper.
That's pretty nice.
So he comes in, makes a treasure, and then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. If you don't want to win by putting every creature onto the battlefield, you do have to invite Gollum to the party.
Which is a bit of a flavor fail, though. But I mean, they've got a relationship.
Maybe they've mended the bridge,
Yeah. Specifically, the Gollum we're talking about here is a Gollum Obsessed Stalker, which is 1 and a black with Skulk, which means it can't be blocked except by creatures with greater power. And at the beginning of your end step, each opponent dealt damage this game by a creature named Gollum Obsessed Stalker loses life equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn.
Yep.
So
super important note that I didn't read this correctly the first time I read Gollum. It's dealt damage by Gollum this game. So it's at the beginning of your end step, each opponent dealt combat damage this game by a creature named Gollum Obsessed Stalker loses life equal to the amount of life you gain this turn. So you can hit 1 player a turn, and everyone that you've hit that game will still lose that much life.
So you just have to keep Gollum.
You just got to protect Gollum.
He already hit you, so
yeah.
he's stalking you.
Yeah, you just have to keep him on the battlefield. So I think he's great in this deck. And that's my favorite version of this deck is just all the halflings, and you dump them all into play, and they show up with pies.
And you can throw Gandalf in there.
Yeah. Gandalf was invited to the party.
Yeah. I guess Gandalf's the white's the only one you can like run in the colors, but
yeah, that's true. You couldn't invite the one that's setting off the wizards. It's fine. He could be white a little bit earlier. It's fine.
Rule 0. Talk to your people about it. It'll be fine.
They won't notice. But if you want to invite vampires to the party, there is a couple of great ones. Veto, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, is going to be your win the game button, probably. If you can activate Bilbo and put Veto, which says, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Onto the battlefield at the same time as a number of Soul Sisters and a ton of things, and your Tristani Selesnia's voice, you'll gain a ton of life and you'll be able to drain everybody out all at the same time. And maybe Bilbo has friends we don't know about.
Yeah, exactly. He's an adventurer's hobbit. Yeah. And I mean, flavor is fun, but when you're running a life gain deck and you have black, it's hard not to justify
Gotta have Veto.
Throwing in Veto.
Yeah. And Sanguine Bond is going to be similar.
Also really good.
Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life.
And that's just a win condition in there. Like, you can use just normal life gain win conditions for this, and you probably want to. It's nice at least that if you hit a cap, the commander comes with one, but you're not going to necessarily get there most of the time.
Something that's really important to notice with Bilbo is usually when these activated abilities are as powerful as his is, they require you to activate them at sorcery speed. But because you have to have 111 life, you can activate it whenever you want. So I wouldn't activate Bilbo until the end step before your turn.
Yeah, so everything comes in, can immediately start attacking and knocking out your opponents and stuff.
Right. And then you put in like big finishers like Archangel of Thune or Blossoming Bog Beast. These are things that will win the game once they all hit the battlefield. Or if you want to be old fashioned, just put a Felidar Sovereign in there.
Yeah, pretty nice.
At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game.
Yep. Pull off Bilbo's thing at the end of the turn, have the Felidar Sovereign in, go to your upkeep.
Yeah.
Done.
Bilbo's got a new pet.
Hooray.
I wanted to know with this deck that while I don't think this deck is particularly broken, it will be scary. You do have a thing on your commander that says, basically, I win the game if I gain enough life.
Well, and the other thing is that, like, people who have played for a while start to see a deck that has a lot of life gain in it and go, oh, we're going to need to deal with them because otherwise they're just going to outlast all of us. Like, so you're going to draw commander hate, you're going to take commander damage and stuff like that. So just be prepared.
Be prepared to take a little bit of hate. And if your deck is all halflings, that's fine. And you can be like, it's just a halfling deck, it's a flavor deck. But your opponents do still have to do something about you. So make sure your deck has plenty of defense to handle the attention it is going to get. All right, let's move on to the next one. You want to read this guy?
Yes. Up next is Gandalf the Grey. This is 3, a blue, and a red for a legendary creature, Avatar Wizard. He's a 3/4. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that hasn't been chosen. First, you may tap or untap target permanent. Gandalf the Grey deals 3 damage to each opponent. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. And finally, put Gandalf on top of its owner's library. So you've gotta go through these.
So let's talk about this Gandalf, because I think this Gandalf's great.
Oh, it's amazing.
This is like mechanically, I think I like a lot of the other Gandalfs more, but this one feels like Gandalf the Grey.
Well, the funniest part is it's got that last option, which is a bit of a downside. You gotta put him back into the deck, but it's just so Gandalf.
So, for those who haven't read the books, they don't highlight it as much in the movies, but in the books, Gandalf just keeps leaving.
Yeah, they keep being like, all right, time to go on an adventure, and Gandalf's like, wait 1 minute, I gotta go do a thing.
I gotta do laundry.
I don't think Gandalf's coming back. Do we wait for we just gotta go.
He's like the most powerful of the party by far.
Oh yeah,
and it's a very important, very pressing quest that they're on. And Gandalf's like, I have to hit the library.
I gotta check something. I'll be back.
Yeah. So the fact that he escapes to your library.
For just a little bit of lore background kind of on Gandalf. Yeah. So Gandalf, we know he's a wizard, but in Lord of the Rings, that's like more than just being someone who's like learned magic.
Right.
Like Gandalf is a Maiar, which basically means that he's an angel. He's like the same sort of being that Sauron is, and they're creatures who are from another world, like, or from the more like heaven type world that's connected, and they came down here and they're supposed to go around and kind of like guide men and the world and stuff like that. So Gandalf goes everywhere and is known by like everyone. So it makes sense that he can't stay in the same place for too long. That's sort of his whole deal. That's also why the reason that him and Saruman and all of them are avatars.
Radagast is, yeah.
Yep.
I loved the choice of Avatar for their creature type. Like, they could have introduced a new creature type here, but I think Avatar really covers this sort of powerful essence without exactly calling them angels, which feels like something more specific.
Well, yeah, and it is a little broader than that because, like, the Balrog is also a Maiar.
Right.
Like, they're the same species, sort of, who have just, like, taken different forms and different abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I think is very cool.
Really cool. Yeah, go ahead.
We also wanted to point out that the way he's described in the books is he wore a tall pointed blue hat, a long gray cloak, and a silver scarf. He had a long white beard and bushy eyebrows that stuck out beyond the brim of his hat.
So far.
And it actually sticks out above the brim of his hat in this art.
Yeah, it's just so good.
Imagine how long your eyebrows would have to be to make that happen.
And he's wearing a wizard hat.
Yeah.
It's not like a little fishing hat.
It's got a big brim. And he looks exactly like that. It's truly wonderful. Just great.
Yeah. So mechanically, let's talk about this card. So it says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, choose one that hasn't been chosen.
Yeah.
And that's just ever. So you'll choose tap or untap, then you can't choose that again, and you have to keep, every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you will eventually cause Gandalf to run away.
Yeah, he's got to go.
He's very busy. So there are ways to get around that without sending him to the library every turn, which he's 5 mana. It's going to get expensive.
Yeah.
And the main way is going to be blinking him.
Yep. Just kind of the classic blink stuff. I mean, Ghostly Flicker is kind of the obvious one that first comes to mind. Of course, when you cast Ghostly Flicker, you have to do one of his things. So I guess if you're going to Ghostly Flicker him, you need to make sure you haven't done all three first.
All of them. Yeah, that was. I was like, okay, what happened? No, he would just leave. Yeah, that's bad. So you have to make sure that you have one left to pick, or he will just leave and fizzle your spell.
Yeah. It also occurred to me, which I think is kind of a funny idea, that if you've done all of them and there's and you're like, okay, I'm going to Ghostly Flicker him, and someone tries to counterspell it, and you try and like counter the counterspell,
he will leave.
You might get forced into making him go away anyway.
So be a little careful with with the blink spells if you're targeting Gandalf. For that reason, I really like Essence Flux and Blur. Yep. I do think you want these effects in your deck, but for that specific reason, I do think permanent based blink is going to be the best way to blink Gandalf.
Yeah, like some of the best out there, at least in these colors, are like Thassa Deep Dwelling, which just lets you bounce a creature at the end of every turn. And I assume if you're building this deck, you might have a couple other things that also give you like ETB payoffs and stuff. So when it's not just Gandalf, you can be taking advantage of your blink and stuff.
Yeah, Conjurer's Closet, and there's a flavorful one. It's Meneldor, Swift Savior. It's a 3 and a blue for a bird soldier. It's a 3/3 from the Lord of the Rings set. It has flying, and it says whenever Meneldor deals combat damage to a player, exile up to one target creature you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control.
And what's best is it's got a Gandalf quote on its flavor text.
It does.
Yeah, he's like, "Then come, we have need of speed greater than the wind, outmatching the wings of the Nazgul." Gandalf. So, if he rides around on this eagle, that's just a flavor win on every level.
I love Meneldor in this deck because you can cast it on 4 and then follow it up with Gandalf, do your cool spells turn, and then blink him so you can have another cool spells turn next. The best blink in this deck, permanent-wise, is going to be Displacer Kitten.
Oh, So good.
Because every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you will blink him or something else, and then you get your pick of all of his abilities.
Turns out Displacer Kitten might be a pretty good card.
I don't know who thought that. I think this card's cool in decks like these. It's Candlekeep Sage. 2 and a blue for a background. It says commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters or leaves the battlefield, draw a card.
That's great. Just like keeps you rolling with the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. If he does happen to run away to the top of your library, you could probably put some things in the deck to just easily cast him off the top.
Sure.
This first one I have is Jacob Hauken, Inspector. He's 1 and a blue for a human. He's a looter. It says draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 4 blue if you do transform Jacob Hauken into Hauken's Insight, which is sort of the big deal here. It's at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled, and then once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled without paying its mana cost. So you could cast your instants and sorceries with it, or you could just put Gandalf under the Insight and get a free Gandalf back.
Another one that kind of helps you keep the Gandalf train growing is Nira, Wild Mage, which is 4 blue-red for a legendary creature, human elf shaman. And whenever you cast a spell, you may put it on the bottom of its owner's library. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This ability triggers only once each turn. So, I guess if the card is Gandalf, he just comes back.
Yeah. He's back to see Nira.
And I guess you could always just cast a big, like, card draw, instant or sorcery is the last one, and at least put him back in your hand. You will have to cast him again, but...
It definitely, you're going to feel casting your 5-mana commander multiple times. This one makes it a little bit easier, and it's kind of interesting. It's Vesuvan Drifter, 2 and a blue for a shapeshifter with flying. It says, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, Vesuvan Drifter becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, except it has flying. So if Gandalf does leave, you can get sort of this temporary Gandalf on the Vesuvan Drifter, which is kind of neat.
Gandalf.
Yeah, this weird ghost Gandalf. Like, Gandalf, you look weird.
And that'll tide you over until you can get real
Gandalf back. I think he's kind of neat. Other than that, this is a spell slinger deck, so we're going to need a lot of the traditional spell slinger stuff. But I wanted to talk about how to get the most value out of Gandalf when he's around, because you do have to maximize the value that you get from him.
Yeah.
So the first two are fairly obvious in decks like this. It's Harmonic Prodigy and Veyron, Voice of Duality. Both of them will cause Gandalf to trigger twice. Notably, you do have to pick 2 different things because it says when it triggers, it doesn't copy the abilities.
Which does mean you need to be even more careful with like having a way to blink him and stuff like that.
If you want to maximize the untap ability, you want big things to untap. You want bounce lands that tap for 2 mana or lotus fields that tap for 3. You want like gilded lotuses that tap for 3 mana. So make sure that if you're untapping things, you are untapping big things because you're only doing it once.
I have to say, I really love this, not exactly combo, but just cool little synergy with it, which is Pyromancer's Goggles. Because when you tap Pyromancer's Goggles and add red, when that mana is spent to cast a red instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. But, like, he untaps it.
Yeah.
One of the things is untap, so you could untap the Pyromancer's Goggles and then tap it to cast something else. Mm-hmm. And if you use that mana on the same spell, it also...
We'll copy it twice.
So
if you've got Gandalf in play and you've got Pyromancer's Goggles, you cast like an Opt. Mm-hmm. Opt triggers the untap thing. You float the mana from Pyromancer's Goggles. Untap it. The next spell you cast is like a Crackle with Power.
Yeah.
Then you trigger Gandalf again. You choose Gandalf's copy thing, and then you use another red from Pyromancer's Goggles. Now you're copying Crackle with Power 3 times.
That's insane.
Really, really cool. And I think that's how I would build this deck. It's just copying big things. And to maximize all of those abilities, you want like City on Fire, which will triple that damage, or Sulfim Mayhem Dominus, which will both double Gandalf's deal 3 damage thing to everybody, and also all of your big burn spells. Twinning Staff is cool too.
Oh,
If you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for the additional copy. So that just means when you copy something with Gandalf, copy it twice. Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all this makes sense because since Gandalf might not stick around all that long, you want to like really get a big punch out of him. You don't want to just be copying, a divination, draw a couple cards.
Yeah.
You want to be doing something that's going to really make an impact on the game.
That's fine if you were like, I'm out of gas, but I think if you're paying $5 to cast this guy who's gonna leave, you really want to be able to capitalize. So we've been talking a lot about permanence in our Spellslinger deck. But I want to remind people that this is a Spellslinger deck, and most of the deck still has to be instants and sorceries. That's the trickiest thing about building Spellslinger these days. Is there's so many permanents that are great with it, but you need to have the Spellslinger, like the spells, to actually trigger it. So I think you still want like 35 instants and sorceries at least.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give a word of warning. Be careful with tutors. Because Gandalf lives on top of your library. Of course, if he goes to your library, you can send him to the command zone instead. But
then you got to pay for it.
Then he's 7 mana. That's a lot. So be careful. But let's talk about these big spells. The first ones I wanted to talk about
feels very spicy to me.
It's so cool. Is spells that you want to copy. Because I think that's what we're doing. So we're casting these big spells with Gandalf. And I think the one that I really want to double is Electrodominance, which is red, and X. Electrodominance deals X damage to any target. You may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost.
So if you do that twice, you
get to cast 2 spells.
2 Electrodominances and 2 spells of your choice. 2 free spells,
which will trigger the rest of Gandalf's stuff.
Yeah. So again, there's a lot of timing.
Careful. He will leave.
He's going to be gone. Maybe if you make one of those spells a card draw spell.
That's the other thing about copies, is the copies don't trigger him leaving. It's just casting spells. So the more copies you can do,
I guess if you know what? I didn't plan this beforehand, so I don't know exactly how. But if you set something up where you have a card draw spell as something that's doing it, and then you get the Electrodominances, and then he goes away, and the card draw spell resolves, you could draw Gandalf and then put him into play with one of the Electrodominances.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Now that's a plan.
That's cool. I love that. All right. My other thing that you could copy is copy spells. Storm King's Thunder being the most splashy one. It's red, X. When you cast your next instant and sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell X times. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Potentially insane.
So if you cast Storm King's Thunder for where X is 3, and then Gandalf's doubles the Storm King's Thunder, now you're getting 6 copies, and you cast something and you get 7 versions of that.
Just seems like it could get out of hand very, very quickly.
Along those same lines, Galvanic Iteration is going to do a similar thing. So what are we casting with all of these extra copy spells that we have? So we've cast Storm King's Thunder. We're going to copy the next spell 6 times.
We've got to actually have something that pays off for it.
So Crackle with Power is the one that we mentioned. I think if you're doing Spellslinger, I want as many mana geysers as I can possibly have.
Yeah, because I mean, we're talking about these huge X spells.
Right.
If you don't have something that's just going to let you dump mana into it, then yeah, and it can be hard to get to that much mana unless you're including the rituals and stuff like that.
Big rituals, especially if you're doubling it. I think the funniest thing to copy 7 times is Time Warp.
Yeah.
Your friends won't have a lot of fun, but you will win that game eventually.
And that's another way to get Gandalf back into your hand.
Hey!
Just draw him each turn, And of course, there's just the spell slinger staple cantrips like Brainstorm, Opt, Ponder. All of these are going to help you, just get the general value off of Gandalf and get to the cards you need and just get your spells cast up.
Yeah, special bonus points for anyone that looks like he's thinking really hard. Brainstorm, Opt, Frantic Search.
Yup.
All of these feel very Gandalf-y. If you're doing that thing where you're like, I don't want to cast big spells, I just want to cast a bunch of little spells, cool, that makes sense. You're going to need Gutter Snipe type effects, like the new Fiery Inscription, which is an enchantment that deals 2 damage every time you cast an instant or sorcery. Or you're going to need Aria of Flame, a dangerous but cool card. It's when it enters, each opponent gains 10 life, but then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery card, put a verse counter on Aria of Flame, then it deals damage equal to the number of verse counters on it to target player or Planeswalker.
Yeah, which can get out of hand very, very fast.
It builds up speed if you're playing a stormier deck.
I like this last little addition you have here, which is just Dragon's Approach for 2 and a red, which Dragon's Approach deals 3 damage to each opponent. You may exile Dragon's Approach and 4 cards named Dragon's Approach from your graveyard. You know, it's Dragon's Approach. If you do, search your library for a dragon creature, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle. A deck can have any number of cards named Dragon's Approach. So if you're just copying Dragon's Approach and drawing more Dragon's Approach and keeping on.
He's got a Dragon's Approach built in. You know? So if you've got Dragon's Approach and like a kitten and a bunch of it feels fun.
You just got to make sure that you don't do the tutor thing when...
That's true. You got to be careful
back into
where
the deck.
Gandalf is. I personally love Gandalf and his Is It phase. He's a ton of fun in this phase, and I like that they printed a commander that sort of represents Gandalf in his less austere time.
Yes.
All right, speaking of less austere, we're going to move on to the next commander. It's Gollum, Scheming Guide.
Yes.
So this one's so much fun. It's 1 and a black for a 2/1 halfling horror, an excellent creature type. Whenever Gollum attacks, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put them back in any order, then choose land or non-land. An opponent guesses whether the top card of your library is the chosen kind. Reveal that card. If they guessed right, remove Gollum from combat. Otherwise, you draw a card and Gollum can't be blocked this turn.
This card, flavor-wise, is so good on so many levels. Like, I think this was one of the first cards they showed people from the set, and there's a reason. Because, I mean, not only, like, it harkens back to Gollum's first appearance in the Hobbit
In the
books,
Hobbit, yeah.
where there was, like, the riddle contest that he was part of, but it also is just an amazing moment from the Lord of the Rings Gollum. So what's on the art here is the moment where he has pretty much faithfully led Sam and Frodo, the whole way, and then is about to lead them into the den of Shelob and the whole thing. Like, I got a quote that was like, the moment that I am pretty sure is right here on the thing, which is, presently they were under the shadow, and there in the midst of it they saw the opening of a cave. "This is the way in," said Gollum softly. "This is the entrance to the tunnel." He did not speak its name. Torek Ungol, Shelob's lair. Yeah.
This is such a huge moment for Gollum because he's like deciding whether he's going to betray Frodo.
Yeah. And there's a moment like right before this in the books where he sees Sam and Frodo, sleeping there. And he has a moment where it's clear that he's like, oh, I don't think I can do it. And then he wakes up and Sam is mean to him and he's like, fine.
I'll kill them.
Spider time.
And it's so great because this card is Gollum waffling.
Yeah.
It's him being like, should I attack or should I not? Which is what Gollum does the whole book.
And playing it is such a fun excuse to be tricky.
Yeah. Ugh. So there's a lot of ways that you could, there's 2 cool ways that you could build Gollum, in my opinion. And the first one is just Gollum at his trixiest. Mm-hmm. It's just Gollum games. It's just welcome Gollum. Like, what's in its pocket, sis?
Be like, you all thought you were sitting down to play Commander, but I actually have a ton of little mini games to play instead.
Because Gollum himself is a mini game. I was like, all right, what are the other mini games you can play? And one of the big ones is Choice of Damnations. It's 5 and a black. Target opponent chooses a number. You may have that player lose that much life. If you don't, that player sacrifices all but that many permanents.
That is so funny to me. I admit, so I think I might have seen this card before, but I've never paid attention to it until you put it on this list. And that seems hilarious to me.
Because they're looking at their permanents and they're like, I have to keep seven. How many lands do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I'll lose 11 life. It's a really tricky game, and it does feel very like conniving Gollum.
Yes. This next one has sort of a similar feel, which is a Boneyard Parlay, which is 5 black for a sorcery. Exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put all cards from the pile of your choice onto the battlefield under your control, and the rest into their owner's graveyards. Which is great. It's like got that Fact or Fiction vibe, But for stuff reanimating things.
I think any little game you can do. So like this one's perfect. This is the most Gollum card ever. And it's Liar's Pendulum. It's 1 mana for an artifact that says 2 tap, name a card. Target opponent guesses whether the card with that name is in your hand. You may reveal your hand. If you do and an opponent guessed wrong, draw a card.
That's so good.
It's what's in my hand.
That's what's in my pockets is.
Yeah.
Which I guess is Bilbo's one, but still, I like to imagine like Gollum like remembers that riddle.
Yeah, and that's like, his new riddle.
I've got a riddle for you. What's in my pockets is.
It's so good.
Just amazing.
And really, really on flavor. The other one I really have always tried to get into a deck is Do or Die. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery. Separate all creatures target player controls into 2 face-up piles. Destroy all creatures in the pile of that player's choice. They can't be regenerated.
For 1 and a black, that's a
it's
pretty
actually
good effect.
great. Like you kill not the best card, but you kill like the second worst and everything else.
I mean, if you do it like, high school dodgeball rules and it's like best one, second best one.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get a lot of really good stuff out of that.
It's also just like any of these that just force your opponent into a weird mind game is going to be a ton of fun and feel very Gollum-y.
I bet there are boards too where there's really only one creature that your opponent really cares about and you can put all their creatures on one side and that one on the other and be like,
yep, you get Seaborn Muse or the rest. And it's only 2 mana, which is just so efficient.
Very nice rate.
So I don't want to read through all of these because there's a lot of games and they're all kind of confusing, but I do want to give you the list that we found because they're really fun. Pain's Reward is one of my favorites. It's a weird bidding draw spell. Keen Duelist is
I'm
Bob,
on record as really loving Keen Duelist.
Keen Duelist is great. And it's definitely like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I like to play it like it's a Wild West duel and be like, pow!
Yeah, exactly. Hoarder's Greed. The art is very Gollum-y, and it is another sorcery that has Clash. Struggle for Sanity. Measure of Wickedness, Creeping Dread, Hostile Negotiations, and the most important game of all, Jinxed Ring. Is it good in this deck? Not at all, but it is a Jinxed Ring. It's a 2 mana artifact. Whenever a card is put into your graveyard from play, Jinxed Ring deals 1 damage to you. Sacrifice a creature, target opponent gains control of Jinxed Ring permanently.
I think what I love about the idea of like this version of the deck is if you do win, your opponents have to feel like they had some agency in losing.
Right.
Like they're like, well, I make a lot of poor decisions.
It's a ton of fun. I have no idea how you win. That's your job. I just give you the fun cards.
Well, for a strategy with Gollum that could maybe win a little bit more, you can go kind of make Gollum big, focus on his attacking, and the fact that because he is either removed from combat or becomes unblockable, basically he's never going to be blocked. And a lot of times he's going to connect with the opponent. So, things that have cool attack or deal damage triggers or that buff Gollum are going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So if you put in like the ultimate one is Vorpal's Sword. An equipped creature gets +2/+0 and have Death Touch, and then there's an activated ability that's 5, black. Until end of turn, Vorpal's Sword gains whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game.
Yeah.
What I love about this card and a lot of the cards in this category is it makes you Gollum game for your life. You're
raising the stakes.
You're like, I am going to be attacked by unblockable lethal unless I guess if that's a land or not. So this category is just, big things that make Gollum a lethal or at least terrifying threat. Blackblade Reforged always goes in this deck. Quietus Spike will half your opponent's life totals. Cards like Hatred or Howl from the Beyond will...
I really like Hatred as like an option.
Really good. And it's so on flavor for him.
And it's nice that you can do that after you know if you've won the game or not.
Exactly.
So like a lot of these others, you have to soup him up with the swords beforehand. Mm-hmm. But Hatred, they think it's a little hit, and it's the whole hit.
Hatred's a 5 mana instant that says pay X life, target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn. So you'll be paying 19 life, but you will be knocking a player out.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of ways just to make him into a lethal threat. There's a lot of lashes in black that buff Gollum for the number of swamps that you control. But what I really like on equipment in this deck is attack triggers.
Yeah.
Because even if you lose the game, you still get value out of that attack.
There's zero risk. So if you put a Sword of the Animist on him, like one of the big downsides of Sword of the Animist is you got to have something to put it on that you could then have to attack with, and there's a chance that you don't have a good attack. But you always do with Gollum.
Yeah.
So you're getting that land every single turn.
Yep, Sword of the Animist is a great one. I really like Anduril, Flame of the West, partially because Gollum gets the King of Gondor's sword.
Definitely a confusing flavor move, but...
So whenever a equipped creature attacks, create 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. If the creature is legendary, which it is, instead create 2 of those tokens that are tapped and attacking. So you get the spirits attacking even if you lose the game.
Yeah, and they can block those spirits, but who cares? You'll make more.
Yeah.
Every single turn.
Bilbo's ring is, if he gets it back.
An amazing flavor win, I say.
Really, really good. Whenever a equipped creature attacks alone, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. It also gives the equipped creature hexproof and can't be blocked, as long as it's your turn. And it says equip halfling 1, which he's a halfling.
Yeah.
Just a really gnarly one.
All right.
This is the best attack trigger and the biggest flavor fail.
Oh, yeah. Look, don't get mad at us. But you could equip Gollum with Lucille, a bat covered in barbed wire, which is, of course, a legendary artifact equipment. An equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has menace. And whenever an equipped creature attacks, defending player sacrifices a creature. If they do, you create a walker token. Equip 4. So, I mean, you got to go find a walker token, I guess. But yeah, give Gollum a bat. Let him go do his thing.
Come on. The final attack trigger I wanted to talk about was Trepanation Blade. 3 mana for an equipment that equips for 2. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, defending player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until they reveal a land card. This creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each card revealed this way. That player puts the revealed cards into their graveyard. I like this one because it's a little bit of a win con, even if it doesn't actually connect.
Yeah.
It also feels like a funny game.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that's cool about this strategy, too, is even if you are trying to do this big, like, knock them out sort of thing, it's still got, like, that fun game element to it.
Right.
You still have to kind of get one over on people, and that's just very Gollum-y.
It's... Part of what I love about Universes Beyond, and part of what a lot of people hate about Universes Beyond, is that you can merge these worlds. Is that you can, give the ring to Denethor. You can, if you want. You're writing the story now. And I love that you can build a Gandalf deck and put a Praetor in it. It's just...
I certainly have mixed feelings about it myself, but I do think it's very funny.
Yeah,
and that
you
counts
have to
for
take
a
a
lot.
moment, right? In Commander, if you do that, you get to take a moment and be like, "Picture it, though."
Hey,
go on.
How'd he get that?
We have lots more Commanders to talk about, but first, we're gonna get a few words from our sponsors.
Okay, my turn.
What is it? Turn 20?
Okay, don't worry. I think I can finally win.
Even after this cyclonic rift?
What?
What? I'm still feeling good. Thanks to Liquid IV, I'm always ready for the long game. Liquid IV is the #1 powdered hydration brand in America, and it's not just for die-hard athletes and marathon runners. Even if you're just going to work for the day or spending a game night with friends, proper hydration is essential. 1 stick of Liquid IV hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone. Plus, you get essential vitamins and great flavors like pina colada or strawberry. Best of all, Liquid IV is helping communities in need. They've donated over 39 million servings in 50+ countries around the world.
Hey, this is good. I think I could go a couple more turns.
Yeah, we're all gonna mill out soon anyway.
Ooh, even after this time twister?
Oh, come on.
Seriously?
My deck has no win cons. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Grab your Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code COMMAND at checkout. That's 20% off anything when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code COMMAND at liquidiv.com.
Citizens of Dominaria, I am Liberator, Urza's Battlethopter. Prepare to be liberated from hunger. Factor is here to free you with delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals require a mere 2 minutes to prepare, leaving you liberated to enjoy the summer. Annoying trips to the grocery store? Liberated. Long cook times and cleanup? Liberated. Overpriced takeout and delivery? Liberated. They offer over 34 different delectable choices each week with options like keto and calorie smart to optimize your fuel intake. My favorite is the barbecue pork Sloppy Joe. It gives me the energy I need to liberate. In fact, liberating you has drained my energy. Preparing to receive Sloppy Joe. Yum. Yum. Delicious. Yum.
Head to factormeals.com/command50 and use code command50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code command50 at factormeals.com/command50 to get 50% off your first box.
Whether you're searching for the latest sneaker drop, that iconic handbag, a timeless watch, or your next piece of classic jewelry, eBay authenticators are there verifying every detail of your purchase.
Yep, we're talking each inch, stitch, tick, facet, and clasp that make the piece you're searching for worthy of your collection.
eBay's authenticators are experts in their craft, true connoisseurs.
And as leaders in their fields, they're making sure your items always arrive as authentic as your style. So go ahead, get that piece you've always wanted.
And leave it up to the meticulous eyes of an eBay authenticator to make sure that watch movement is original, that glimmer is real gold, that rare sneaker is legit, or that handbag is really made of genuine leather, and never get faked over again.
In a world full of fakes, it's time to get real with eBay Authenticity Guarantee.
Everyone deserves real. Visit ebay.com for terms.
Hey everyone, we are super excited to announce that we are now sponsored by ARCHIDEKT.
ARCHIDEKT is the perfect place to build and store decks online, whether you want to build from scratch or catalog your collection.
Everything is easy and intuitive. It's got the same feeling as when you sit at the table with your cards laid out right in front of you.
Then, once your deck is done and ready to go, their built-in playtester is a great tool to make sure your brews work as intended.
And now that ARCHIDEKT has partnered with EDH Rec, they have all the resources and data they need to really refine and perfect the platform. So even if you've tried ARCHIDEKT in the past, it's definitely worth taking a new look right now.
Just go to archidekt.com and start brewing on the best deck builder out there.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking about the most flavorful commanders in Lord of the Rings.
The most flavor-flav commanders in Lord of the Rings.
And we're going to get right back into it, starting with Legolas, Master Archer. 1 green for an elf archer with reach. He's a 1/4. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas, put a +1/+1 counter on Legolas. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, Legolas deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature.
This card makes me laugh because I think this is so well designed for the flavor, because in the art there, he's got 2 arrows in his bow.
Yes.
And he's, a very skilled archer. And if you cast a bite or a fight spell that both targets him and targets the opponent, he goes boop boop.
Yeah.
And he grows and hits 2 things. And that's just great. What a cool, simple, mechanical way to get the 2 arrow
thing going
across.
And on top of that, this isn't specifically the Legolas counting one, but the fact that he counts his kills still. And I love that that's just a character trait of Legolas. It's he's always counting.
Oh, absolutely.
He for sure has OCD.
Well, okay, I just want to throw this out there because I think it's funny. In the movies, everyone is constantly like, why does Legolas never run out of arrows? He has so many arrows. In the books, they're constantly talking about how Legolas is running out of arrows. They keep putting in lines that are like, I'm going to have to go find some arrows somewhere. So he's always keeping track of the number of arrows he has. And Tolkien was at least detail-oriented enough to be like, he would have run out by now.
He's got it. He's out. I know he's out. I've been counting.
Yeah, and of course the book has that amazing moment from the movie where it's like Gimli in the middle of the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's like 2, said Gimli, patting his axe. 2, said Legolas. I have done better, though now I must grope for spent arrows. Yet I make my tale 20 at the least, but that is only a few leaves in a forest. I love that he takes a pause there to be like, I'm out of arrows, though.
I'm useless. Yeah, I got to go run around and pull some arrows out of dead guys.
Which at least gave Gimli time to catch up.
Yeah, that's good. It is very difficult to kill someone with an axe, to be fair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although Gimli does win that fight. It ends up 24-23, I think.
Well, the design of this card is just so flawless, and I love that it's mono green Legolas. It just feels exactly what I wanted from this character.
Yeah, I think it seems really cool, and I guess I don't know quite how powerful it would be, but it does the thing I always love, which is like makes a new like way of building a deck and a new play pattern seem viable with all these fight spells, all these bite spells.
Yeah, let's talk about those. Because that's definitely what this deck is doing.
Yeah,
it's a fight/bite deck because you want to be able to target two things. So you're going to want your Cosmic Hungers and like Animist Might. There's a ton of bite spells. I think the instants are going to be best as usual.
Well, because they have the upside of like if someone does remove him or pump their creature in some way that makes like a former fight not great, you can toss another one on there and keep the arrows flowing.
Get more counters onto him.
Yeah.
One of the best ones I think is going to be Bushwhack. This is a sorcery, but it's a single green mana, and you can either search for a basic land, reveal it, put it into your hand, so you can cycle it for a land, or you can give target creature, it's a fight.
Great.
And in this one, bites are fine, but fights are just fine too, because he's going to be huge.
Well, and he's a 1/4 at the beginning, which, is not all that intimidating for him dealing damage right off the bat, but he's just going to keep growing and growing, and his back end is going to stay large. Yeah, I said it. We love the elves here. But that makes it he's in a good position to win the fights he gets into.
Right. He's going to be able, he's tough as well as, kind of feisty. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk about all of those. This deck is going to be primarily in like bites and fights, but there are lots of instances that target creatures that do cantrips. So you could put counters, or you could use them as removal spells, not put counters on them. Even if you could do both. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas, you put counters. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, you bite. So a spell like Irresistible Prey is a green for a sorcery that says target creature must be blocked this turn. If able, draw a card. So you could target your own thing and make him grow, or you could target an opponent's thing and use it as a removal spell, and it cantrips.
Seems great.
A bunch of those in green. Just look for the cheap instants and sorceries that also draw cards and target. But let's make him a little bit more powerful even.
Oh, yeah. And there are some great options for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me was the second one you had on the list here, which is Basilisk Collar.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of a classic for decks that do anything like this. It's just 1 mana, and equip creature for an artifact equipment. Equip creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Equip only for 2. Suddenly, every time you're casting something that targets an opponent's creature, you just kill something.
Yep. You just kill it, and you also gain life.
Really nice.
It's tidy. It's cheap. It's very powerful.
Yep.
This one's a cool find. It's Great Bow Doyen. 4 and a green for an elf archer. He's a 2/4. It says other archers, creatures you control get +1/+1. Sure.
Nice.
Whenever an archer you control deals damage to a creature, that archer deals that much damage to that creature's controller.
That's nice.
Whoa!
That's a win condition in this
That's
deck.
a win condition in this deck for sure. Yeah. And this is the kind of card that you do not play until you can cast at least 1 bite.
Yeah. Once you have like 10 power Legolas sitting out there and people are like, oh, that's kind of a problem. You go, boom, cow.
Dead.
Take that.
Really, really good in this deck. Anything that you can do to make that damage go face or to turn into additional value is going to be really, really powerful.
I love this next one. This seems so good.
Really good.
Windswift Slice, which is 2 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt this way. That's so good with a constantly growing Legolas.
Everything you want it to do. It targets Legolas, it targets an opponent's creature, and it turns that extra counters, because he's going to be enormous at some point, into elves. And this deck is going to need a little bit of defense because
definitely
this is a mono green control deck. And I do want to talk about that a little bit because Legolas is sweet, but your whole deck is designed to kill your opponent's things.
Yeah.
And your opponents will figure that out. So you do have to have a decent amount of defense. That life gain is going to come in handy, and lots of protection for Legolas because he sort of is the glue that holds this whole thing together.
Well, and I think one thing that will be kind of a downside of the deck is that you're going to run into situations where your opponents just don't have the creatures you need to remove.
Right.
I mean, I have a Toshiro Mizawa deck, and it's very like destroy my opponent's creatures so I can cast more spells, and I run into the same problem sometimes.
Because of that, I was like, how can you pivot this deck into a more proactive deck? Or at least give it proactive options. So if you have all these fight spells, you kind of want big things that you can hit. Stuffy Doll being sort of the most famous of these.
Just a total classic.
Yeah, so you basically turn your Stuffy Doll into a Bresh Taunter because you have all these fight spells and you can deal damage to Stuffy Doll and start throwing that damage around. Another one I love in decks like this is Hornet Nest. It's 2 and a green for a 0/2 defender. When it's dealt damage, create that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens with flying and Death Touch.
It's pretty good.
Really good defense. And, you just wait until Legolas is big enough to make that fight worth it. There's more that makes tokens. Druid's Call and Broodhatch Nantuko do basically the same thing as Hornet Nest, but not quite as efficiently. The other one is going to be a big problem in this deck.
Yeah, which is Vigor. And Vigor is 3 green for an elemental incarnation, trample. If damage would be, and it's a 6/6. If damage would be dealt to another creature you control, prevent that damage. Put a 1/1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. When Vigor is put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. So you're just turning all of that fight power into actual power.
Yeah. All right, so you want to turn all of that power, all of that punching power into more cards because you are going to run out of cards pretty fast in this deck. So I think one of the best cards in the deck is going to be Season of Growth. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment. It says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Sure. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. That's the magic word. Yeah.
Really good.
Any deck that wants fight spells or any sort of combat tricks, which I love to build, loves a Season of Growth.
Well, and if you are playing any of those cantrips that you can like target your own creature on too, you're just getting so much value out of it.
And there's a lot of cards that just give you more value when you target. So instead of maybe doing direct card advantage, which is great, you can also turn those cards and just make them more powerful. Not exactly card advantage, but card efficiency.
Yes.
And that's all stuff like Venerated Rot Priest.
And Venerated Rot Priest, like, kind of new, but that's another one that's just like a win condition on its own in this deck. So you just don't need to be destroying their stuff and getting through on that. You just start dumping poison counters onto people by targeting your own Legolas with stuff.
Yep. What I like about Venerated Rot Priest is it doesn't draw the targets off of Legolas. It just cares about you targeting creatures at all.
Yep.
Same with Wild Defiance. It's 2 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of an instant or sorcery spell, that creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Perfectly good way to get Legolas going early and make him nice and big. These last two give you just even more fighting. It's Gargos. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. And Livewire Lash says whenever this creature becomes the target of that spell, this creature deals 2 damage to any target.
Just got to keep on fighting.
Yeah, that's what my mom always said.
Yeah, right. And then, of course, a major synergy in the deck is that you're going to be putting a lot of counters on Legolas. So, things that just make counters better are going to fit really well in the deck. Like the new Ozolith, the Shattered Spire, which is just if 1 or more 1/1 counters would be put on an artifact or creature you control, put that many +1 1/1 counters onto it instead. And so every time you fight, you're going to be getting more, which is great.
Yeah, I think your opponents are going to have to answer your Legolas at some point.
Yeah.
So anything that helps you rebuild real quick is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Because it's got to go.
Yeah.
So turning those fight spells into efficiently making Legolas big and a huge threat again is going to be really powerful. So Hardened Scales as well. Or
the original Ozolith continues to be an absurdly good card. Yeah.
Yeah. What did they do? Oh boy. Gosh. And there's a Lord of the Rings reskin of the Ozolith. That's very cool. It's the Kings of Gondor, I think.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to keep it moving with... you have to read this one.
Just one of the strangest includes of the whole thing, but I love her.
It's so special.
Lobelia,
Defender of Bag End. This is 2 and a black for a legendary creature, halfling citizen, 2/2. When Lobelia enters the battlefield, look at the top card of each opponent's library and exile those cards face down. Then she has the ability to tap, sacrifice an artifact, choose one. Until end of turn, you may play a card exiled with Lobelia without paying its mana cost. And each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Those are the 2 options.
Super fun.
This is the second Lobelia. I mean, this is she's in the Commander product.
Yes.
But there is the other Lobelia, and what I think is cool.
This is Commander product.
This is Commander product Lobelia, and the other one, just Lobelia Sackville Baggins, is in the main set.
Right.
But what I think is cool is Lobelia really shows up twice in the book. She shows up at the beginning when she's coming to the party and is jealous of Bilbo because she wanted his house. And then she shows up at the end when there's an event going on that's not in the movies called the Scouring of the Shire, where basically Sauron, as a final screw you to, them all having lost the war, goes in and takes over the Shire with a bunch of thugs under the name Sharky and goes through it. And there's a great moment where they go back and they were like, yeah, they took Lobelia away. I'll read what it says there, because they actually are talking to someone, and they're like, yeah, these thugs came up and said they were going to Bag End. And Lobelia confronted them and said, I'll give you Sharky, you dirty thieving ruffians, says she, and ups with her umbrella and goes for the leader near twice her size. So they took her. They've took others we miss more, but there's no denying she showed more spirit than most.
They've took others we miss more.
She's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
She is like Bilbo's age, and 2 huge thugs show up, and she just takes her umbrella and starts beating on them to defend Bag End.
Lobelia, so Lobelia is mono black, which is represented when you first meet Lobelia. She's very greedy. She's greedy. She's she was trying to steal the silverware.
Yeah, Bilbo thinks that she's been stealing his spoons.
Yeah.
So as his going away gift, he gives her the rest of the spoon set.
Yeah, very
as
good.
a message.
Bilbo's a little.
Well, it also says it's she took the message, but she also took the spoons.
I like that she's sort of this bad guy in the Shire, which is this idyllic place.
Yeah.
And so she's the villain of this perfect little world.
Yeah.
And then when the real bad guys show up, like a real villain, break into your sort of perfect little world,
she shows her mettle.
Shows up and she defends her home, for better, for worse.
Exactly.
And suddenly this person that you're like, you know what? I don't like being around her very much, becomes this hero, or, recognized as a person who shows up.
When they release Lobelia from the prison that she's thrown into, all the hobbits applaud for her, and she's overwhelmed because she's never been popular in her life.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's so cute.
She's like, look, I'm not very fun, but I will fight.
And then she has a redemption arc because she dies later, because she was very old, but she gives all her money to homeless hobbits after that.
She learns.
Yeah.
I love it. I really am glad that they gave this card to Lobelia. I love that both cards deal with artifact tokens, because she's all about little trinkets and stuff. She wants the silver spoons.
Well, yeah, and it's in this one, it's she's giving up the artifact she has.
Yeah, she's sacking them to get other things.
Yeah.
I love this card. I love Lobelia. I'm so glad that we got a couple of cards of her. So let's talk about how to build this deck. Starting with, we're going to need her to enter the battlefield as many times as possible.
Yes.
Which,
to do that, you use Black Blink.
Yeah. Which is the old sack and bring it back technique. So for this version, you're going to need cards like Malakir Rebirth. There's a ton of these. We talk about them a lot. It's your supernatural staminas, fake your own death, undying malice. All of them basically say until end of turn, target creature gets something, and then whenever it dies, return it to the battlefield. And they all have sort of a twist on that.
Yeah. And then you'll probably need ways to kill her when those happen.
Right.
So, normal sack outlets, a couple here really good, like Deadly Dispute. And this is kind of a new one that I think is really cool in the deck, which is Nasty End, which is also flavorfully good because this depicts a point around the same time in the book where Wormtongue
slits Saruman's throat at the end of things. But Nasty End is 1 and a black for an instant as an additional cost to cast the spell. Sacrifice a creature, and then it's draw 2 cards. If the sacrificed creature was legendary, draw 3 cards instead.
Seems good.
That's a nice rate.
I really like these sack spells. I don't know how many sack outlets this deck actually needs because you really only need Lobelia to die like a couple of times to get the cards that you want so you can cast them for free. So I think cards like Victimize, that where you sack a creature and you get 2 back from the graveyard, or even Bone Shards, sack a creature or discard a card to destroy target creature or planeswalker. All of those are perfectly good ways to sacrifice Lobelia, and you don't necessarily need something like an Ashnod's Altar.
Yeah.
It's probably fine if you want to go in that direction, but I think these are sort of as efficient and as useful. You're also going to want to untap her. Once you get a couple, some cards underneath her, you're going to want to use as many as you can.
Yep.
So this is a 1,000-year elixir deck for sure. I think you even want a Mage Right Stone, which is the 2-mana artifact that just has the untap ability of 1,000-year elixir. Of course, there is some colorless blink. You don't necessarily have to kill Lobelia over and over again.
Fine. Yes, but there is stuff like Sword of Hearth and Home, which does the sword thing, so you get +2/+2 and protection from green and white. But then also, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own. Then search your library for a basic land card, put both into the battlefield under your control, then shuffle. So that's another Lobelia. Also, and a land.
If any sword was for hobbits, it's the Sword of Hearth and Home.
Right? Flavorfully. Just perfect.
And it's protection from green and white.
She's defending her home.
Yeah, it's protection from green and white, which is the other hobbits.
I do love the image of her just with this sword being like, come and get me.
It's Umbrella of Hearth and Home. Conjurer's Closet will blink her as well. I also kind of like this vehicle.
Golden Argosy. 4 mana for a legendary artifact vehicle. Whenever Golden Argosy attacks, exile each creature that crewed it this turn. Return them from the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And a crew of only 1.
Yeah, it's a little 3/6, so it's not necessarily going to its doom.
Yeah.
And you get a little blink in there.
At least a 3/6 usually has someone you can attack where their best option is to just bounce.
They would they would have to double block it.
If they've got a 4/4, it's just not often worth it to double block in
and
case.
Lose their 2/2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, Panharmonicon goes in this kind of deck as well. But those are just ways to make her enter the battlefield to up your selection for when you sacrifice those silver spoons and throw it at the baddies.
But, of course, you're going to need some stuff to sacrifice.
Yeah.
To make it go. Ichor Wellspring comes to mind as just one of the best. It's 2 mana, it enters the battlefield and you draw a card, and then when it goes into the graveyard, you draw another card.
Tidy, clean, worth a card. There's a lot of artifacts that do basically that. Mycosynth, Wellspring, Prized Statue, all do something coming and going. Give you a little value for Lobelia.
And Solemn Simulacrum. I feel like these days Solemn Simulacrum is a card I always consider for decks, but I usually end up cutting unless it has some synergy beyond just being what it is. But as something you could sacrifice and draw a card and get to do all the other things, I think it's an all-star in a deck like this.
I really do like it in this deck and in a lot of decks that can make it enter the battlefield multiple times because you're doing artifact stuff and you're doing black things. You have a Scrap Trawlers probably go in this deck, and you're going to want artifacts to go to the graveyard and come back. Solemn Simulacrum is going to put in a lot of work. You could also go the token version of this if you don't want to be sacrificing non-token artifacts. You could make junk artifacts, treasures, clues, blood, Academy Manufactor type stuff. When you're just trying to make as many artifacts as possible.
Yeah, sacrifice. There's tons and tons of ways to make treasures, and sacrificing 1 treasure for a free spell that you have gone
seems okay.
Yeah, seems awesome.
My favorite version of this is Noble's Purse because it feels very on flavor, and she definitely would go after it. But it's a 2-mana artifact that enters with 3 coin counters on it, and then you can tap and remove a coin counter every turn. So it makes you a treasure, makes you a treasure, makes you a treasure. Then it's an empty purse. So you have this you have made 4 artifacts in 1 card, and you can throw the purse out.
Sacrifice that purse.
Yeah.
You need to know more. Throw it at the bad
guys. Got her own
guys.
purse. There's a lot of cards that make just a ton of artifacts in 1, and that's where you're going to want to live. But we know Lobelia cares about the payout, so let's talk about what we're doing, what we're actually getting out of sacrificing all these artifacts. And that's the loss of life for sure.
Yeah. And Marionette Master is just really a go-to for anything that's going to be sacrificing a lot of stuff like that, which, it's kind of a classic. 4 black, fabricate 3, which can either mean 3 counters on Marionette Master or 3 artifact servos. And whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So I don't think you ever, in this deck, make the servos. You just want Marionette Master to be big so that you can be sacrificing stuff and dealing damage.
Yeah, and also if you're out of stuff that's under Lobelia, you could just start draining them for life.
Totally.
So you have your Marionette Master abilities and Disciple of the Vaults, Agent of the Iron Throne, that kind of thing that we've talked about a lot. But you could just put Lobelia to work, tap and untap her as many times as you have artifacts. One card that I would love that they printed in this archetype recently is Terracier's Devastation. Terracier's. You know the one.
Terracierre.
Yeah.
Maybe. Who knows?
X 2 black. You lose X life and create X tapped Power Stone tokens. Then all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each artifact you control. I think this card's great in junk decks. If you're making a lot of artifacts, this is just 2 black for a -1/-1
pretty good
board wipe. It's just strictly better than Damnation in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
If that's a synergy you're doing. You don't even have to make the Power Stones if you don't want.
Yeah, and I mean, Power Stones, a little mixed on like how useful they are in a lot of decks, but if you can just sacrifice them.
Yeah, throw them at Saruman.
Yeah. What's he going to do with them?
Yeah, right. Maybe don't give them to Saruman. All right, that's Lobelia. I think this is actually a really cool deck. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, I kind of want to play Lobelia.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the next commander, which I think is probably one of the Rachelist of the cards in the set, right?
Looking forward to seeing what is on this Magic card since they were like, we're having a Lord of the Rings set. They're making a Shadowfax. I know they are. They've got to make one.
Show me the horse.
They have to make a Shadowfax card, which means they're going to make like a playable, maybe it's even a rare horse. It's not, but it's still very fun. It's Shadowfax, Lord of Horses. 3 red-white for a legendary horse. It is a 4/4, and it says, horses you control have haste.
Haste horse.
Then it says, they can attack and tap as soon as they come under your control.
That's pretty nice.
Little explainer text for haste.
Attack and tap. Wow.
And then it says, whenever Shadowfax Lord of Horses attacks, you may put a creature card with lesser power from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking.
So Shadowfax rides people into battle.
Pretty sweet. I sort of love that Shadowfax is Boros. I wouldn't have done it myself, maybe, but I do like it a lot.
Well, I think it makes sense because Shadowfax is a Rohan horse.
Right.
Like Shadowfax is not some like ancient horse that's been around for thousands of years. He's a horse from the stables of Rohan who everyone's like, that's a really, really nice horse. Like really top tier horse. Everyone is like, that horse is like a throwback to the horse, the horse from which all other horses are made.
Oh my God, I would build the horse so fast.
The horse. And then Gandalf basically steals him by taming him and going away. And that's sort of why Theoden is mad at him when he actually first comes back.
I always assumed it was some kind of god horse.
No.
I love that it's just a horse.
No. And then eventually Theoden formally gives Shadowfax to Gandalf. But also, Shadowfax is like so dope that he has to be in charge. I had a couple Shadowfax quotes here I kind of like. First, Shadowfax they called him. By day his coat glistens like silver, and by night is like a shade, and he passes unseen. Light is his footfall. Which is just like, wow, what a great horse. Tolkien describes how good this horse is a lot. And then there's another quote that's, you do not ride Shadowfax. He is willing to carry you or not. It is then his business to see that you remain on his back. There's another part that goes after this. Is like, your other option is jumping off mid-ride.
Yeah, it's like, oh, he'll dump you off the back if he wants to. Yeah. Don't worry.
So you only get to ride on Shadowfax if Shadowfax wants you to ride on him.
Yeah, and it's a very important detail in the movie that he doesn't, like, there's no bridle, there's no saddle. It's just Gandalf ripping across the countryside bareback on this white horse.
And in the books, he specifically says, they're like, oh, you're not riding with a bridle. And he's like, well, I always ride with equipment, except on Shadowfax.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
Not to this horse.
No.
Have you looked at this horse?
That's a nice horse.
There's a lot of cool flavor things going on in the design of this horse. The most, the glaring reference is that he shows you the meaning of haste.
Yes.
They haven't put explainer text for haste on cards in a very long time.
But they
until
show
Shadowfax,
it on this.
Which, of course, Gandalf says to Shadowfax in the movie anyway.
Just really funny. Yeah. When Faramir is dying and they really need to go get, I don't remember what it was, but something to try and save him.
Yeah,
it's like, Shadowfax will show her the meaning of faith.
Haste. Faith.
We'll show her the meaning of faith. No, Shadowfax will show her the meaning of haste. Much better.
So good. It's so good. I love that they knew enough about the set and cared enough about the set to make those little references.
Joke. So good.
Really fun. So let's talk about what to do with this Shadowfax deck, because there is some cool stuff going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to move through this really quick. It's a commander with an attack trigger, which means you're probably going to want extra combats.
Yep.
That's going to be the first thing you're going to do. The best one is Aurelia, the war leader, because she's a 3/4.
Yeah, so you can sneak her in with Shadowfax.
You don't get that attack trigger because it enters tapped and attacking, but you don't have to pay the 6 mana. So if you race with Shadowfax on turn 5, you cheat over Aurelia in, attack with the Angel, and then next turn you got an Aurelia in play. But also, this kind of deck probably wants to seize the day, which untaps Shadowfax and gives you another attack with him, or like just a relentless assault.
Yep.
Tidy. Mm-hmm. But who else gets to ride on this horse? Who's allowed?
Well, anything with proper CMC that's low enough. We thought that it'd be funny if there was a meteor golem riding on the back of Shadowfax. Which seems, I mean, that's an expensive card, but if you're attacking into a not particularly great attack, you can at least drop in the meteor golem, kill whatever the blocker is that's a problem, and then ride easy with Shadowfax.
I really like this. So the main thing that I was looking at with Shadowfax is I want high CMC stuff with low power, which often means that they have some kind of ETB or other value. So Meteor Golem is a great one because it just answers anything, but like Duplicant and even like a Zealous Conscripts I think is pretty sick. You can yoink that like anything. Zealous Conscript steals any permanent.
Yes.
And it just should be in more decks. It's just...
I love Zealous Conscripts. When I first played it, I thought it was just like a threaten effect on a stick. And it was okay.
Yeah.
But realizing that you can steal like important artifacts or
planeswalkers that are ready to ult.
All that sort of thing.
I saw a Zealous Conscript steal a Gaia's Cradle.
Insane.
Like... It's outrageous. It's a really good card.
Great card. Zealous Conscripts. Play it.
Yeah, and because of these ETBs, I was like, this is probably some kind of blink deck.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff that you really want to get into play with Shadowfax is high mana, low power. One I really liked was Githzerai Monk. I like this card a lot. It's 4 and a white for a flash flying 3/2 Gith Monk.
It's one of those Giths.
When Githzerai Monk enters the battlefield, tap all creatures you don't control.
That's pretty nice.
What blockers? And then you pass.
Horse time.
And gives you a big free attack. And if you're blinking, Githzerai Monk is awesome in aggro decks.
I feel like that is really just going to throw people for a loop sometimes.
Yeah.
They're not going to see not being able to block anything you have coming at them.
It doesn't target, is no way to protect against it. It's so fun. The other thing I found a lot of was stuff that ETBs and makes other bodies.
Yeah.
So low power, but it comes with a number of things. And I could see that being a way that you build this as well.
Like Captain of the Watch is an example of that, which is 4 white for a creature human soldier. It's a 3/3. It has vigilance, and other soldier creatures you control get 1/1 and have vigilance. Not super relevant to Shadowfax, but when Captain of the Watch enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into the battlefield. So you just get to keep going wider.
Yeah. If they block their 3/3, fine. You already have 3 things. Or you blink the Captain of the Watch so it doesn't die in combat.
Yep.
There's a lot of creatures that ETB make tokens. You're in white. Reverend Hoplite and Evangel of Heliod both give you tokens equal to your devotion to white. But this card is really sweet in this deck. It's a new one that I really want to get in there. It's Dark Steel Splicer.
7 mana, though. Oh,
yeah.
Wait.
Oh, huh?
Oh, we get to play for free with a horse.
These splicers are actually great in Shadowfax because they're all 1/1s. So when this enters or another non-token Phyrexian enters the battlefield under your control, create X 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of opponents you have. Huge blink target. Oh, it also gives golems you control have indestructible.
Seems great.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
3/3 bodies with indestructible. It's attacking, but if you can blink this once, that's an enormous board.
Yeah, definitely going to be tough to get out there if you don't have a horse that can ride it into the battle, but you do have a horse.
You know what's the next funniest thing to ride onto Shadowfax? It's Bill the Pony.
It's Bill the Pony.
He's allowed.
I want to see that. I imagine Bill just sitting on the back of Shadowfax, like surfing style.
He's never run that fast in his life.
Yeah, like one of those dogs on a skateboard, you know?
Bill is a horse. He's a 3 and a white for a 1/4. When he enters, you make 2 foods, and you can sacrifice a food until end of turn. Target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Which is great because you want these low power creatures, a lot of which will have high toughness that you're sneaking in with Shadowfax.
I think this is kind of a funny build for Shadowfax, is you use Shadowfax to cheat in things that have huge toughness and hit for their toughness.
Yeah, that sounds fun. A horse on a horse.
Yeah. This next one is the best card, though.
Bolden, Century Herdmaster. 4 white for a legendary creature, human warrior, who is a 0/7. As long as it's your turn, each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Whenever Bolden, Century Herdmaster attacks, up to 100 target creatures each get +0/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So this is going to be a problem if you have like 130 creatures.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to target all of them.
Yeah, it's 13-1.
Yeah.
This card's great. It comes in and it attacks as a 7/7, which is awesome. Obviously, you don't get your attack trigger off of Shadowfax, but he does stick around until next turn. Rasad in Bashir does a similar thing.
The Arcades trick, I always think of it as.
Right. The other funny thing about Shadowfax is you could put walls into play.
Oh, yeah.
Attacking.
That you rode that wall in on the back of a horse and then it flings it off in a battle and it just keeps going.
Yeah, which I love picturing Shadowfax throwing a wall of Gondor into the battlefield. So we talked about a lot of things that have low power, high CMC that you can cheat in with Shadowfax without buffing Shadowfax's power at all. But of course, you could slap some swords on this horse.
Yes. Give a horse a sword. Blackblade Reforged, we already mentioned. Sword of Hearth and Home also has that same, situation where it works as a way to power up the horse so you can put more things in, but also is a way to blink these cool things that you're doing. Commander's Plate.
Great
one. Adds a little bit of protection.
One of my favorites in this deck is Hero's Blade. This is a really innocuous sword that's great with haste commanders. So Hero's Blade is 2 mana. Equipped creature gets +3/+2. Whenever a legendary creature you control enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Hero's Blade to it. It's equipped 4. But the main thing is you cast this before Shadowfax. You cast Shadowfax. It automatically equips to Shadowfax. And he has haste.
Yeah.
So he will immediately attack as a 7/6.
And then if there was like a double striking creature that you're bringing in, like let's say you're bringing in like Theoden or something, and it enters the battlefield, it can give itself haste or give itself double strike.
Yeah.
And you could then immediately switch the Hero's Blade over to it if it's better and deal a ton of damage.
I think that's why Heavenly Blade Master's in this deck. And I think if you're doing this like weird horse equipment deck,
right,
this one's awesome. It's a 6 mana 3/6 with flying and double strike. And when it enters the battlefield, you may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to it. Then other creatures you control get +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to Heavenly Blade Master.
Oh, that's fun.
So you can cheat it into play with Shadowfax, no matter what Shadowfax's power is, because it's a 3/6, and then all of the equipment go on it. It'll buff Shadowfax, and it's also huge.
I just love the idea of Shadowfax having all these swords and stuff like in his mouth, and then he throws it to an angel. Looks like, "Go, Blade Master! The Lord of Horses commands it."
There's definitely an equipment build in here. It's like Boros equipment. You're still going to cheat in some of those extra combat guys that we talked about before. But I do think there's kind of a neat counters build as well, specifically because backup is sweet with Shadowfax.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are attack triggers, but I like Death Greeter's Champion is a 2/3 with dash and backup 1 and double strike. So it's a 2/1 that you can cheat into play. So it's a 2/1 double striker, and you can put that counter onto Shadowfax, make it bigger for next combat, but also give Shadowfax double strike. So you're like
That's
immediately get that value, and Shadowfax is even better in combat.
That's fun.
There's a lot of cards that just have ETB buff the team.
Like Sarah Redeemer, 3 white. Whenever another creature with power 2, that's flying. It's a 2/4 Angel Soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, put 2 1/1 counters on that creature.
So I like this one with like the token cards that we were talking about before. So if you want to do like cheat in some of those little things, you can just get the team big and wide quickly.
And it really helps kind of get around the things you have to sneak in being lower than Shadowfax's power. It's just going to keep putting more power on everything.
There's also a funny trick you can do with Shadowfax is cheat in these expensive artifacts that have 0/0 power but enter with counters.
Oh, yeah.
I think Hexavis is probably the best one. A Hexavis for the rest of us. It's a 6 mana artifact construct with flying. It enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters on it. And it has 1 remove a +1/+1 counter from Hexavis, put a flying counter on another target creature, probably the horse, and then 1 remove a counter from another creature, put a +1 counter back onto Hexavis. Easy to cheat in, can immediately buff your commander and make it harder for him to be blocked. Just a ton of value on Hexavis, and especially when he's free.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. All right. That is Shadowfax. We're going to keep it moving to probably one of the most anticipated commanders.
Oh, yeah.
Of the set. We kind of teased it already.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, yeah, this is taking us all the way back.
Yeah.
Right after the Gollum card there, because the cave that Gollum was leading them into was the cave of Shelob, child of Ungoliant, which is 4 black-green for a legendary creature, Spider Demon, an 8/8. Death Touch, Ward 2. Other spiders you control have Death Touch and Ward 2. Awesome. Whenever another creature dealt damage this turn by a spider you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food artifact with 2 and tap, sacrifice this artifact, you gain 3 life, and it loses all other card types.
It's so cool.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. First of all, it's an 8/8.
If you haven't seen the food tokens it creates too,
it's awesome. It's
so
grim.
It's these, wrapped up bodies in spider silk.
Love that it's an 8/8 because it's a spider. Love that she has Death Touch and makes other spiders better.
I just have to say, I played against this card in Limited, and it's not fair. It's way too good for that rate. But honestly, the food token making thing is so backbreaking and so powerful. Like, there are so many creatures, and obviously, they're not a creature when you steal it. They become a food token. Yeah. But they keep, they whatever their ETB is, you get to do. Yep. If they have any activated abilities, you can do it. If they have any passive abilities, you're getting all that. Yep. And you're getting rid of their creature in the process.
So what's funny about Shelob is there's a lot of extra stuff on that. But if you squint, it's Turgid. A little bit it's Turgid. But it's harder than Turgid.
Yeah, it's just a little bit Turgid.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Turgid. It's a little bit rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
I did find a quote about Shelob.
Yeah, I want to read. It's so cool.
So Shelob is like a very, very old spider. And as they talk about her in the cave, it says, "How Shelob came there no tale tells, for out of the dark years few tales have come. But still she was there, who was there before Sauron, drinking the blood of elves and men, weaving webs of shadow, for all living things were her food, and her vomit darkness." She's the last living child of Ungoliant, who's like the primordial spider, the spider,
Ur spider
the Ur spider, from whom all other spiders came. Ugh. And like tons and tons of the spiders in the world now, like in The Hobbit, they run into spiders in the woods and stuff. Those are all like the children of Shelob that have gone out, and she eats a lot of her own kids and stuff. She does no maternal instincts for all that
terrible mom.
But yeah, and Sauron loves her.
Yeah,
he considers her sort of a pet, and every now and then she
older than him.
She is,
yeah,
but she doesn't like have much ambition. She just kind of likes to eat stuff. And every now and then, like a group of orcs who live in the area near where she is will like go and try and stop her, and she'll eat a bunch of them. Yeah. And Sauron's just like, "Oh, you rascal!"
Well, there's a lot of cool tech for Shelob, so I do want to talk about how to actually build her. But before we get into it, I want to talk about Academy Manufactor.
Yes.
Because this is a question that was going around, and I just want to get it answered. Academy Manufactor, of course, says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each. Now, I looked at this and I was like, this does one of two things.
Yeah.
Either you get 3 token copies, you get like a clue creature, a treasure creature, and a food creature,
which would be great, right?
Or you just get the regular 3. And the answer is it's the regular 3.
Yeah.
So if you would get a copy of an opponent's creature that is a food, Academy Manufacturer sees it as like, oh, you made a food token. Instead, I'm going to make a food, a treasure, and a clue. And Academy Manufacturer only knows one kind of food, treasures, and clues. And that's the kind he'll give you. So it'll replace the creature food copy and give you the 3 traditional ones that we know.
And arguably, it's still 3 tokens for the price of 1. But if you're playing Shelob, you're probably trying to get value creatures out of it too. And you don't want to lose that.
So if you're building a food deck around Shelob, if you're like really focusing on the food stuff and you want to make a ton of junk and you're making an artifact deck, Academy Manufacturer is probably good. If you want to focus on the copies of the creatures that you're making, Academy Manufacturer is a non-bow. And in doing my research, I found that if you make a token copy of Gingerbrute, which is a food golem, and you have an Academy Manufacturer, you get all 3 still, which I was like, what? Because you're making a token food.
Whoa!
I know. So if you have like a weird, like a Kiki Jiki, and you want to copy a Gingerbrute for some reason, that would trigger Academy Manufacturer.
All right,
and none of them would be Gingerbrutes. And I was like, I had never thought about that in my life.
That's hilarious.
I know. I love it. All right, we're going to get into it. So the first thing you need in this deck is...
Spiders,
spider babies for Spider Mama. A lot of cool spiders. The best way to make spiders is probably token spiders.
Yep.
But so Lolth, Spider Queen, has got to go in this deck. She makes 2/1 spiders with menace and reach. And she's a planeswalker. She can fight Shelob for the Spider Queen role.
And then there's Rot Widow Pack, which has 2 black-green, which is itself a spider with reach. But it has the ability for 3 black-green to exile a creature card from your graveyard and create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Then each opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control. So you're playing probably, we might have Spider Tribal going on. That's going to be a nice amount of damage and just a way to turn your graveyard into spiders.
Yeah, spiders kind of love the graveyard. Ishkana Graph Widow certainly does. It's 4 and a green for a spider as a 3/5 with reach. When she enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, put 3 1/2 green spider creature tokens with reach onto the battlefield. It also has an activated ability that's 6 and a black. Target opponent loses 1 life for each spider you control.
Fun.
So those are both the make as many spiders as you possibly can cards. As is this next one.
Arasta of the Endless Web, which is 2 green for a legendary enchantment creature, spider, 3/5, reach. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach.
Tidy.
Yeah.
You want a lot of spiders because a lot of the ways that you get spiders to kill things is with fight spells, so they are going to die. But this next one is very difficult to kill. It's Doom Weaver.
Ooh.
4 black for a spider horror with reach and soul bond. As long as Doom Weaver is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, when this creature dies, draw cards equal to its power.
That's pretty nice.
It's notably not great with spiders because they tend to be
kind of small.
Yeah, they tend to have small power and big booties.
It is a little bit of, not exactly like a non-bow, but it's not the same strategy as like little 1/2s with death touch.
Luckily, Shelob is an 8/8.
Yeah.
So she will handle herself. But Doomweaver is a spider that just is incidental card draw. I've had a ton of luck with it, and I think this card will be great in the deck.
And of course, there's Arachnogenesis, one of the best but most expensive currently spider makers.
Oh my God. It got so expensive after Shelob was printed.
And that's 2 and a green, an instant that puts X 1/2 green spider creature tokens into the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. And you're going to have
a ton of spider creatures. That's great.
That's going to really, really blow people out.
I hope that Arachnogenesis is good in this deck. I think it is going to be kind of hard to attack into the spider player because a lot of your creatures are going to have death touch.
With so much death touch on the board, people are going to be... I mean, they can't even fly over it because so many of your spiders
have reach as well and are going to have death touch. So it is actually quite difficult to attack the Shelob player generally. But if there's a board wipe and you haven't recovered because your commander is 6 mana, I do think there's a world where Arachnogenesis is good, where people are like, we got to attack it while we can. So I don't necessarily think Arachnogenesis is going to be worth the money at this point.
Yeah.
It makes spiders great, but I think it may rot in your hand a little bit.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
I don't think you're going to like lack for spiders in this deck.
I think you're going to make plenty of spiders. There's a lot of 2 mana ones with reach and death touch or just reach. Those are all going to be great. You're probably going to play those.
Yeah. Well, and the same, as you were saying, it's not like people aren't going to probably be blocking your spiders, so you need to have a way to make that death touch turn into killing their opponent's creatures for stuff.
Which means you're probably going to run a lot of the spells we talked about with Legolas, but more specifically bites rather than fights.
Yes.
So this is your Cosmic Hunger, which is it's the difference between bite and fight, which we didn't mention before, I guess, is bites deal direct damage. It's like you deal damage equal to your creature's power to another one. Fight is they deal damage to each other.
And both are good.
Both are good.
Bites are real good.
Bites are going to be better because a lot of your spiders are going to be 1/2s, so they're going to die in the fights. Bite just means you're going to deal 1 death touch to another creature, and it will die, and you'll make a token copy if you control Shelob. So all of the bite spells are going to be probably best in this deck. Bite Down, Animus Might, Cosmic Hunger, like we said.
I really love Spinning Wheel Kick.
Yeah!
Which, okay, what an amazing image with an 8-legged creature just jumping in the air and spinning. Spinning Wheel Kick is XX green for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. Then you get them all.
That seems pretty good to me. It's a lot of mana, but Spinning Wheel Kick, for those who play Limited during Neon Dynasty, is really very, very
so good.
You're also going to want the little bitey equipments for your spiders. Thornbite Staff is going to be the really scary one. It's 2 and tap. It's an equipment that gives a creature an ability. 2 and tap. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. And whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap this creature. So now your spiders become a little machine gun where you get to kill every creature that's put into play.
If you've never seen this in action, it is brutal. It is really tough.
Really, really powerful. So yeah, treat Thornbite Staff with a little bit of prejudice. Or Viridian Longbow.
Yeah, and not quite as like tear the whole board apart kind of deal.
Still good.
Still pretty good, which is just 1 mana for an artifact equipment with equip 3, and equip creature has tap. This creature deals 1 damage to any target.
Tidy.
And I feel like you probably, you could put this on Shelob, but I feel like you probably just put this on like a minor spider so that they don't have more reason to
for sure
get rid of Shelob. But even like, I sort of think this equipment and stuff is better in this than a lot of decks because all your spiders are going to have Ward 2. It's harder for them to blow you out when you are casting these fight spells, when you are equipping them with all that sort of thing.
For sure. The Ward 2 is going to go a long way.
Yep.
And especially for protecting Shelob, which is a huge mana investment. I did want to mention this one because I think it's an interesting way to go. It's you look upon the Tarrasque. A 4 and a green for an instant. Choose one, run and hide. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control this turn. Probably fine, but we're here for the next one. Gather your courage. Target creature gets +5/+5 and gains indestructible until end of turn. All creatures your opponents control able to block that creature this turn, do so.
That's fun.
Seems good. So this one you probably do with Shelob or with one of your bigger spiders.
Because you want that 8 damage. So
you
that
want
you can just
as much power as possible.
1 to each thing. Because that would let you get...
You'll wipe their whole board.
8 stuff.
Yeah, 8 things.
Yeah.
Because you can kill... the way Death Touch and assigning damage does, you can put 1 damage on each one and get a ton of creatures.
Real good. Season of Growth we mentioned earlier, but it's still going to be good in this one.
If you're running all of the bites and fights, Season of Growth and Wild Defiance show up again here. Anytime I can put this card in a deck, I do. It's Swarmyard.
Hey!
It's a land with add colorless and tap, regenerate target instant, rat, spider, or squirrel.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. And it's just so low cost to, put it in. Like, regeneration is a little tough to pull off sometimes these days because there's just so much exile removal in Commander, but it's just a colorless land.
Yep.
Comes into play untapped. You got it.
It might be able to save your Shelob from an austere command or something like that. So I think Swarmyard definitely goes into this deck. The next two are just staples in any deck that's making tokens or having stuff die, and that's Parallel Lives and Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus, which doubles up dies triggers.
Yep.
So I believe with Drivnod, if something dies, if like an opponent's creature dies, it triggers Shelob, you get 2 token copies.
I think that's correct.
Which is the same result with Parallel Lives. Cool. That's Shelob. You can do some really cool stuff with this deck. I love that you can get spiders in and do little bug bites.
I think we're going to see a lot of Shelob decks.
I agree. I've already heard of a ton of people building it. And
I'm pretty excited about it. Well, it's just a very cool commander.
Yeah, for sure. It at 6 mana. Anytime that like a 6 mana commander becomes popular again, you're like, nice. It makes Commander feel like the old days. All right, those are the cards that we are going to talk about today. Those, I believe we talked about 7 commanders are the ones that really pulled at the heartstrings, really connected with the Lord of the Rings story. But before we wrap up here, I want to talk about just your favorite commander that we talked about today.
Well, my favorite of the ones that are here is got to be Legolas Master Archer. I like when I got the joke, I guess you could call it, of the mechanic, or when I understood how it worked, I was just so impressed with how it looked. I love that it's it's not like there isn't mono green control out there somewhere, but it's just such a cool, different type of archetype. I'm dying to see what it looks like when it's actually in play. Just super cool card.
Yeah, I agree. They really, really nailed the mechanical flavor on Legolas. But I think my favorite has to be Shadowfax, Lord of Horses.
Of course.
I have literally been looking forward to this card a year before the show came out. I think I did a tweet, or the set came out. I think I did a tweet that was like, here's what I think Shadowfax is going to be. And it was worse than this card. So I'm perfectly happy with this. And the art, honestly, I think will make people join the game of Magic because it's so charming and fun.
Yeah, pretty horse. Very nice.
All right, we talked about some flavorful commanders today, but we have to do the toughest thing of all. We have to pick which one has the most flavor out of all of the 7 that we talked about today.
This is really hard.
Yeah.
But I think I've got to give it to Shelob.
Yeah.
Like, Shelob just turning creatures into food tokens as a spider thing is amazing. If you describe that and you don't know anything about how magic works and stuff, you'd go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do spiders not always do that?
It's so clever because it's like you get this thing.
Yeah.
But it's not as good to you because it's dead and it's for eating.
Right. It's all wrapped up. I just think that the flavor is overwhelming. It's so cool. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I love this one a lot. But I have to give my most flavorful commander to the commander that I saw and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to love this set. And it's Bilbo Birthday Celebrant.
And I will say that Bilbo Birthday Celebrant was pretty up there on my list too. And partially I was like, I'm going to give it to Shelob so we don't both say the same name.
Yeah, that's good. I saw Bilbo and it's one of those magic cards that's written like a joke because you're reading it and you're like, hey, because he lived a long time. He invites everybody to the party. 11-1!
and it's also, if you were just seeing this and you didn't know anything about Lord of the Rings, you'd be like, That's a weird arbitrary number to go on there. But instead you're like, oh, party time.
I love this Bilbo. I love that he's got a little bit of black in there. I think they really nailed the halflings, and they added a lot of like cool, weird joy and humor to that precon in particular. So I think there's some real winners there.
It's been exciting looking at these cards and just having all these moments where it's like, that's cool. Oh, of course they're like that.
You'll love this. I meant to include this in the outline, and I just remembered.
Okay.
Isildur's Fateful Strike.
Yeah.
You know that card?
Uh-huh.
So 4 mana, black instant that destroys a creature, and then you look at their hand, and if they have more than 4 cards, they discard down to 4. And it's because Isildur cut his finger off.
Yeah.
He has 5 fingers, and he only keeps 4 of them. Which means that
his hand has to go down.
His hand goes
4.
down to 4.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah.
That is so good.
What a special design. And also it canonically establishes that cards in your hands are fingers on your hand, which is really creepy.
Fantastic.
Like, it's such a special set, and I'm so excited about what they've done with the card design. There's so many jokes that I keep finding, and you keep realizing how clever they were. So
yeah,
I think it's going to be hard to beat this set of the year for me, and it's largely because of the flavor that we talked about today.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be really tough.
To the listeners, which commanders do you think are the most flavorful commanders in the set? Are there any that we missed? Did we talk about one today that you're like, well, clearly it's Lobelia is the most flavorful. Let us know. Are you planning on building any of the commanders that we talked about? I know there's a lot of Shelob fans out there. Did we miss any tech for Shelob or the other ones that we talked about today? Any ones that you were like, this one's so flavorful, I wish you had talked about it. Let us know.
I've heard a lot of people talking about trying to build just Lord of the Rings decks for stuff.
It's
just to get the flavor on point the whole way.
It's so great. And I love that they have like a slightly different frame so you can really feel the cohesion of the deck. We talked about any cards that you're excited about, anything that you're running out to get, any singles or sealed product, please support the show and support your card collection at cardkingdom.com/command. Card Kingdom has a great selection of all cards, but especially of Lord of the Rings. There's so many different versions, and I'm really picky about what version go in what deck.
Yeah.
If I'm doing like the new ring border, I want all ring borders that I can possibly get. So I know when I go to Card Kingdom, I like that all of the versions are there for me to choose from, and I know exactly what I'm getting. Plus, they all get wrapped up in one tidy shipment, so I'm only tracking one package, and it's like Christmas when it shows up on my doorstep. So again, support the show and buy some sweet Magic cards at cardkingdom.com/command. And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them. You're going to need to dress them up. You're going to need to sort them and store them properly. And you can do so by going to ultrapro.com/command. UltraPro has the highest quality Magic accessories in the business. Plus, they have access to all of the amazing Magic art that is coming out in every set, but especially this set. There's so many playmats that I'm like, I want that. I want that. I'm building all of the precons to have in one box. And I was like, well, I've got to get all 4 playmats.
Well, duh.
Well, I've got to, because they all have the deck. So if I want to sit down with all the playmats too. And all of those are available on Ultra Pro. Plus, if you are always looking for new art to put on your playmats, you can sign up for the Ultra Pro newsletter. And they do sudden deals that are really good. If you're like, I need to get all of my deck boxes upgraded at one time, sign up for the newsletter. They'll let you know when there's a big drop or a big sale happening. Or if there's like a cool Secret Lair playmat series, which they have done a number of times before. Again, ultrapro.com/command. Support the show and your collection. All right, we're going to say thank you to our huge team here at the Command Zone that make this episode and all of the episodes possible. Special thank you to Megan Yip, Eric Lem, Damon Lentz, Arthur Meadowcroft, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Craig Blanchett, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Jamie Block, Sam Waldo, Gaurav Galati, Mitch Trafford, Evan Lerberger, Gabriel Pozos, Jimmy Wong, Josh Lee Kwai, and to Jordan Pridgen. Thanks for taking the time and for being our resident Lord of the Rings expert. It was fun having you on this episode.
It was a lot of fun. Whenever I can talk about lore and stuff, I'm in.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we will see you next time. Peace.
For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.